Hey everybody, you know some military zones span thousands of acres and they operate more like self-contained cities. These massive bases are critical for projecting military power across regions. So for today's video, I'm going to count down 15 of the biggest military zones in the world. Let's begin with number 15, Fort Irwin National Training Center in California. Fort Irwin is a major U.S. Army training facility located in the Mojave Desert of Southern California. It spans about 1,000 square miles and it's one of the largest military installations by land area in the U.S. Established during World War II and officially designated as the National Training Center, or the NTC, in 1980, Fort Irwin plays a key role in preparing American troops for combat through live-fire exercises, mock urban warfare, and complex maneuver training. The size of the center allows it to replicate large-scale battlefield scenarios that wouldn't be possible in the more constrained locations. It has multiple mock cities built to simulate real-world urban environments in Iraq, Afghanistan, and other conflict zones. One of the most notable training sites within the base is Rajesh, a massive simulated town complete with role-playing civilians, marketplaces, and hostile forces. These environments are used to train brigade-level units, often with thousands of personnel rotating through for multi-week training cycles. The fort's also equipped with advanced instrumentation that tracks soldiers' movements, records engagements, and allows commanders to retrieve the effectiveness of their tactics. The arid terrain here and extreme temperatures also contribute to conditioning the troops for operations in similar environments. The facility here is managed by the U.S. Army Forces Command, and it serves a wide variety of units, including armored and mechanized brigades. While its remoteness adds logistical challenges, it also makes the area ideal for high explosive exercises. The infrastructure here supports thousands of personnel at a time with housing, hospitals, schools, and logistical hubs spread throughout the installation. While it is primarily focused on combat readiness, Fort Irwin also supports a permanent civilian population that includes the families of stationed soldiers and Department of Defense employees. It remains a critical site for the U.S. Army's readiness program. Its role in preparing soldiers for modern asymmetric warfare makes it one of the most important military zones in North America. Number 14, Naval Air Weapons Station, China Lake, California. The Naval Air Weapons Station, China Lake, is a military testing and research facility located in the western Mojave Desert of California. Covering over 1 million acres, China Lake is the U.S. Navy's largest single land holding and accounts for about 38% of the Navy's total land assets, and it's primarily used for weapons research, development and testing, and evaluation, particularly of naval aviation systems and guided munitions. China Lake was established during World War II and has since evolved into a major center for cutting-edge weapons. It's home to the Naval Air Warfare Center Weapons Division, which oversees testing and prototyping for air-to-air missiles, precision-guided bombs, and electronic warfare systems. Some of the most iconic U.S. munitions, including the AIM-9 Sidewinder missile, were developed and tested here. Though its work is primarily focused on the Navy, China Lake also supports projects for the Air Force, Army, Marine Corps, and Department of Defense contractors. The laboratories include wind tunnels, flight sims, and hardware integration centers, and in addition to military operations, it also contributes to civilian scientific research. The base has its own airport, of course, and supports both manned and unmanned aircraft testing. Drones and hypersonic projectiles have been evaluated here at China Lake, along with advanced aircraft countermeasures and targeting systems. A major earthquake in 2019, though, caused significant damage to parts of the station's infrastructure, but repairs and upgrades have since restored the core operations. Given its size, its specialized mission, and critical role in weapons innovation, NAW's China Lake is one of the most strategically important and expansive military zones in the U.S. Number 13, Capostinar, Russia. Capostinar, it's one of the oldest and most secretive military test ranges in Russia. It was established in 1946 near the Volga River, and it was initially created for testing the Soviet Union's first ballistic missiles, derived from captured German V-2 rockets. Today, it spans about 2,800 square kilometers and it functions as a major weapons test range. During the Cold War, it served as the USSR's equivalent to America's White Sands missile range. It was a vital part of their missile development program, especially during the early years, when the USSR lacked more advanced space infrastructure. Rockets launched from here could travel hundreds of kilometers into the Kazakh steppes and allowed for extended missile testing and re-entry tracking. The first Soviet ballistic missiles were developed and launched from this site. While some of its functions have since shifted to newer facilities, Capostinar remains active. Modern military tests continue there, including evaluations of new missile systems, mobile launch platforms, and countermeasure tech. In recent years, it's been associated with the testing of a new missile system, the S-400 and S-500 air defense systems, and a hypersonic glide vehicle. Over the decades, it's been a subject of speculation and secrecy, similar to Area 51 in the U.S., due to occasional reports of unidentified aerial phenomena and restricted overflight zones. However, unlike the American facility, it's well documented as a missile and weapons development site with a clear purpose. The large footprint and historical role in weapons innovation makes it one of the most significant and expansive military zones in Russia. Number 12. White Sands Missile Range in New Mexico. Alright, headed back to the U.S., White Sands Missile Range, located in southern New Mexico, is the largest military installation in the United States by area, covering more than 3,200 square miles. It has been a cornerstone of American missile testing and weapons development since founding in 1945. The range is operated by the U.S. Army, and it works in coordination with multiple branches of the military, government agencies, and defense contractors. White Sands has historical significance too, as the site of the first detonation of a nuclear weapon, the Trinity test on July 16, 1945. That single event marked the beginning of the atomic age, and it was conducted at what is now the northern end of the range. Since then, it's grown into a massive complex. The facility includes numerous launch complexes, radar tracking systems, and impact areas. The terrain is desert flats, mountains, and scrublands, which offer a varied landscape for different types of testing. It's also hosted the development and evaluation of some of the most important weapons in U.S. history, including the Patriot missile, the Terminal High Altitude Area Defense, and more recently, hypersonic glide vehicles and laser-based systems. The remoteness of the base allows for large-scale experiments that would be impossible in smaller or more densely populated regions. It provides fully instrumented corridors for tracking missiles in flight and monitoring electronic signatures. And in addition to kinetic weapons, it's also used to test electronic jamming systems, radar spoofing, and cyber defense. White Sands supports military and non-military organizations. NASA has used the range for rocket recovery and astronaut training, and the range is connected by infrastructure to Holloman Air Force Base and has airspace coordination agreements. Public access, of course, is limited, though parts of the range are occasionally open to the public for events like the Trinity Site Open House, which is held twice a year. Because of the enormous land area and its historical significance, White Sands Missile Range is a key element of U.S. national defense infrastructure. Number 11. Eglund Air Force Base in Florida. Eglund Air Force Base is located in the Florida Panhandle near Fort Walton Beach. It spans over 724 square miles. The base's test ranges, training grounds, and facilities make it a central component of the U.S. DoD's air, land, and weapons development operations. It's operated by the 96th Test Wing under the Air Force Materiel Command. Eglund plays a critical role in air-delivered weapon testing, aircraft certification, and joint force training, serving every major branch of the U.S. military. Originally established in 1935 as the Valparaiso Bombing and Gunnery Base, the installation was renamed in honor of Lieutenant Colonel Frederick Eglund, a U.S. Army Air Corps pilot who died in a crash. During World War II, Eglund became a key site for testing bombs and aircraft modifications, and it continued to grow throughout the Cold War and into the modern era, evolving into a multidisciplinary testing ground supporting cutting-edge weapons development, flight testing, and live-fire experimentation. But the most prominent feature of Eglund is its extensive test and training range, which includes over 100,000 acres of forested and coastal land. This provides a secure environment to test air-to-ground munitions, long-range cruise missiles, and laser-guided weapons. The size of the range also allows for full-scale testing of hypersonic weapons, precision-guided munitions, and next-gen platforms in realistic combat conditions. One of Eglund's key missions is to support the Air Force Armament Directorate, which oversees research, development, and the evaluation of air-delivered weapons. Facilities include instrument test ranges, telemetry centers, environmental simulation chambers, and specialized labs for explosive safety, target effects, and ballistics. The base also hosts the AFWorks Innovation Program and several collaborative units involving civilian defense contractors, academic institutions, and allied militaries. Eglund's infrastructure does support rapid prototyping, data analysis, and live digital modeling, which are critical tools in speeding up the development cycle of modern weapon systems. In addition to weapons testing, though, it's a vital center for environmental and climatic testing. Aircraft and systems are subject to extreme heat, cold, and humidity, salt corrosion tests to assess operational reliability in environments that are diverse. The McKinley Climatic Laboratory is a massive climate simulation hangar on base. It's one of the largest of its kind in the world and can simulate conditions from Arctic blizzards to desert heat. Eglund is also heavily involved in joint force and multinational exercises, which supports training for the Air Force, Navy, Army, and Marine Corps, and its terrain allows for integration of air and ground assets in the simulated battle condition. Foreign partners, too, have participated in many of these exercises, which strengthens the interoperability across NATO and the Pacific alliances. Number 10. China's Lapner Military Testing Area. Located in the southeastern region of the Uyghur Autonomous Region, it's a vast remote desert area used historically for nuclear weapons testing and modern experiments. Covering an estimated 100,000 square kilometers, Lapner served as the Chinese government's primary nuclear test site from the 1960s until the cessation of testing in the 1990s. China's first nuclear test, Project 596, was conducted at Lapner on October 16, 1964, marking the nation's entry into the ranks of nuclear-armed states. Between 1964 and 1996, a total of 45 nuclear tests were carried out at the site, including atmospheric, underground, and thermonuclear detonations. The area remains under tight military control, though nuclear testing has ended. Lapner has evolved into a broader military experimentation zone, and satellite imagery has revealed extensive activity here. Large-scale mock-ups of foreign military installations like aircraft carriers and air bases have also been identified in the area, believed to be used for targeting practice. In recent years, evidence has emerged that Lapner does play a significant role in the testing of China's hypersonic glide vehicles and next-generation ballistic missile systems. The site's isolated location enables the People's Liberation Army, the PLA, to conduct sensitive trials with minimal foreign surveillance or civilian risk. The area surrounding it is heavily monitored with large restricted zones and military checkpoints. Lapner's dual role as a former nuclear test site and a current high-tech proving ground has made it a focal point for foreign intelligence and academics. It's remained one of the most scrutinized locations in China by international security observers. As China's military continues, Lapner's importance is unlikely to diminish. The expanse, the legacy infrastructure, and strategic value still make it one of the largest and most secretive military zones in the world. Number 9. Fort Liberty in North Carolina. Fort Bragg, renamed Fort Liberty in 2023, is one of the largest military installations in the world by population and operational scope. Located in North Carolina, it spans over 500 square kilometers, that's about 250 square miles, and it supports one of the highest concentrations of active-duty military personnel in the world, well over 50,000 soldiers, with an additional 14,000-plus civilians employed on site. Originally established in 1918 as an artillery training ground, Fort Bragg expanded during World War II to accommodate airborne training and later evolve into the U.S. Army's primary center for airborne and special ops forces. It houses several elite units, including the 82nd Airborne Division, U.S. Army Special Operations Command, Joint Special Operations Command or JSOC, and the U.S. Army Forces Command or FORSCOM. Fort Liberty has multiple airfields, including the Pope Army Airfield, extensive live fire ranges, jump zones, and urban warfare training facilities. The infrastructure here includes more than 5,000 buildings, along with multiple family housing complexes, schools, medical centers, and shopping facilities. The base plays a central role in U.S. rapid deployment strategy. Units stationed here are capable of deploying anywhere in the world within 18 hours, a capability repeatedly utilized in past operations, from Panama to Iraq and Afghanistan. It also serves as a hub for training allied forces and conducting joint NATO exercises. And in addition to the combat training, the base supports intelligence and cyber operations, psychological warfare, and special mission planning. Fort Bragg's operational reach and scope make it one of the most strategically significant bases in the U.S. But despite its massive size, it is tightly controlled and subject to constant upgrades. Advanced simulation centers, UAV operation zones, and classified special ops buildings are all part of the evolving base. It remains a cornerstone of the U.S. military readiness campaign. Number 8. Salisbury Plain Training Area in England. The Salisbury Plain Training Area, the SPTA, located in Wiltshire in southern England, is the largest military training zone in the United Kingdom. It spans about 380 square kilometers of land, and although this makes it smaller in geographic size compared to some US or Russian ranges, its density of operations and live fire and armored vehicle exercises place it among the most heavily used military zones in Europe. The British Army began using the Salisbury plain for training in the late 19th century, and the area has since developed into a complex network of facilities. The landscape consists of chalk downlands, rolling hills, and open fields. That's terrain ideally suited for armored vehicle maneuvers and artillery testing. Today it serves as the primary training area for the British Army's armored infantry brigades. One significant feature in this area is the Lark Hill Garrison, home to the Royal School of Artillery. The nearby Bulford and Tideworth garrisons also support troop deployments and barracks for tens of thousands of soldiers, and the integration of air and ground assets here makes Salisbury Plain a key training site for joint ops. The area includes several designated impact areas. That's where live ammunition is fired. It's also equipped with mock villages and urban training zones that replicate other environments encountered in overseas missions. The training area is not only used by the British forces either, but by NATO allies conducting joint exercises. Its infrastructure supports year-round training under various weather conditions, and it does remain central to the UK's defence strategy. Although much of the plain is restricted during active exercises, parts of it are open to the public when not in use, and this dual approach has allowed for the preservation of local wildlife and historical landmarks like Stonehenge, which lies just outside the training boundary. Moving on to number 7, the Nellis Air Force Base and Test and Training Range in Nevada. Nellis Air Force Base, located near Las Vegas, Nevada, is the central hub for U.S. Air Force advanced combat training. However, the true scale of this military zone includes not only Nellis Air Force Base itself, but also the adjoining Nevada Test and Training Range, making it one of the largest air and ground military training zones in the world. This zone spans over 12,000 square miles. That's more than 31,000 square kilometers of restricted land and airspace. This is an area roughly the size of Switzerland. Nellis was officially activated in 1941, and it now serves as the home of the Air Combat Command's Warfare Center. It's where elite fighter pilots train in highly advanced air combat scenarios. The base also hosts the U.S. Air Force Thunderbirds, and it conducts exercises like Red Flag, which simulates real combat situations with aggressor squadrons and integrated ground support. The adjoining test and training range includes desert flats, mountain ranges, and specifically designed urban environments for tactical simulations. The airspace above the whole thing is highly controlled, and it serves as a testing ground for experimental aircraft. Numerous weapon testing programs are also conducted here, involving both live munitions and electronic warfare. A large section of it includes a highly classified area, Area 51, officially part of the Groom Lake Air Force Base. While details about Area 51's activities remain undisclosed, it's historically associated with the development of experimental aircraft like the U-2, the SR-71, and the F-117 Nighthawk. Because of its huge, isolated terrain and secure airspace, Nellis and the NTTR allow for unrestricted testing of weapons, radar jamming, long-range targeting systems, and even new combat platforms. Together, Nellis Air Force Base and the Nevada Test and Training Range form a combined zone that is both strategically critical and geographically massive. It plays a central role in maintaining U.S. air dominance in the world. Number 6. Woomera Prohibited Area, South Australia. The Woomera Prohibited Area, the WPA, in South Australia is the largest land-based weapons testing range in the world. It covers around 122,000 square kilometers, that's 47,000 square miles. It's slightly smaller than the state of Florida, and it encompasses a significant portion of central South Australia. It's used by the Australian Department of Defence and occasionally by allied militaries, including the United States and United Kingdom. Established in 1947 under a joint Anglo-Australian agreement, the range was originally used for testing long-range ballistic missiles, and it became one of the world's premier missile development sites during the Cold War. British Blue Streak missiles and nuclear-capable weapons were trialed here, and it played a role in the development of early space and satellite systems. Today it serves a variety of purposes. It supports the testing of conventional and advanced weapons, including hypersonic vehicles, guided missiles, and unmanned aerial systems. And the terrain, largely uninhabited desert, offers an ideal environment for long-range weapons trials. The size allows for weapons to be fired over extended distances without risk to populated areas. Woomera Village, this is a small support community within the zone, has military and scientific personnel involved in testing programs. And in addition to military use, parts of it are leased temporarily to resource exploration and scientific research under strict access controls. Now, despite its immense size, the area is largely off-limits to the public. Civilian entry is regulated, often denied during testing periods. A strict range management system controls and land use ensures that sensitive operations aren't compromised. It is a key site for testing cutting-edge technology, including long-range precision strike capabilities and even drone systems, and it's expected to play a growing role in regional military planning in the Indo-Pacific. The combination of huge open space, restricted access, and integration into modern weapons development cements its place as one of the world's largest military testing zones. Number 5. The Douggeway Proving Ground in Utah. Douggeway Proving Ground. It's a huge and highly specialized military testing area located in the remote desert of western Utah. It's operated by the U.S. Army Test and Evaluation Command. Douggeway covers about 3,200 square kilometers, or about 1,200 square miles, making it one of the largest isolated zones in the U.S. Established in 1942 during World War II, Douggway's original mission was to test chemical and biological weapons. It became one of the principal sites for studying the effectiveness, delivery, and detection of chemical and biological agents. To this day, Douggway remains the primary U.S. military facility for chemical and biological defense testing, although the nature of the tests has changed due to international treaties. The facility contains controlled release chambers, simulated urban environments, and laboratories capable of handling some of the most dangerous pathogens and substances in the world. Testing here includes decontamination procedures, protective equipment, sensor accuracy, and delivery mechanisms for various chemical or biological threats. Douggway is also used for radiological and high-explosive testing, too. In addition to the original mandate, Douggway now supports drone and autonomous vehicle research. Its large, unpopulated test areas allow for full-scale experiments with surveillance drones, radar-evading technologies, and unmanned systems operating under GPS-denied conditions. The base is remote and heavily secured. Much of Douggway's airspace is restricted, and overflights are prohibited without special clearance. It's adjacent to the Utah Test and Training Range, operated by the U.S. Air Force, and it's further expanding its relevance for joint testing and integration. Douggway's isolation allows for high-risk experiments that couldn't be safely performed anywhere else. Although public access is strictly prohibited, satellite imagery does confirm the continuous construction and renovation of facilities on site. And while its work has attracted public concern and speculation, especially regarding biological testing, its role in preparing defenses against weapons of mass destruction is critical. Douggway provides the U.S. military with the space, the security, and the technical infrastructure needed to test defense technologies under real-world conditions, and that makes it one of the most unique and vital military zones in the world. Number 4. The Northern Theater Command Training Zone, Inner Mongolia in China. Inner Mongolia is one of the largest and most strategically important military regions operated by the People's Liberation Army of China. It spans thousands of square kilometers, and this area encompasses a variety of terrain, including high-altitude grasslands, plains, forested regions, and desert zones. It's located in the northern reaches of China, near the border with Mongolia and Russia, and the zone is operated under the jurisdiction of the PLA's Northern Theater Command. It plays a key role in preparing China's ground forces for high-intensity warfare, combined arms operations, and long-range mobility. The zone has several major training facilities here and test ranges, like the Zhuhai Combined Tactics and Training Base, which is widely considered the largest and most advanced land-based facility in China. One of the distinctive features here is a purpose-built mock city modeled after foreign urban environments, which PLA troops use to practice urban warfare. The city includes multi-story buildings, underground tunnels, road networks, and fortified positions. In recent years, training here and at other bases within the Northern Theater Command Zone has emphasized the concept of actual combat conditions, in which units face unpredictable scenarios that test their combat readiness. These drills often include electronic warfare, cyber warfare simulations, chemical and biological defense training, and joint ops involving the PLA Air Force and Rocket Force. The scale of these exercises can be pretty immense, with thousands of troops, hundreds of armored vehicles, unmanned aerial systems, and real-time satellite coordination. But beyond Zhuhai, the broader area includes additional facilities like the Tonan Tactical Training Base and numerous artillery and missile test ranges. The very terrain here allows for training across different environments from desert warfare to mountain combat and even forested engagements. Such variation is critical for the PLA, which has to prepare to operate in diverse terrains across China's borders and within its expansive domestic landscape. The military infrastructure within the zone is pretty extensive. It has hardened bunkers, underground command centers, aircraft shelters, rail terminals, and huge motor pools for tanks, artillery, and transport vehicles. Military satellite links and encrypted communications networks support real-time data transfer here between units and higher command. And in recent years, improvements have included the installation of high-speed rail spurs and roadways specifically built to support rapid mobilization. The zone is heightened by its geographic location, and it's situated near several of China's borders, including Russia and Mongolia. The region does provide China with a forward operating environment from which it can project military force or even conduct defensive operations. While relations with Russia are currently stable, the PLA continues to prepare for all contingencies. Additionally, Inner Mongolia's huge uninhabited areas offer the Chinese military a controlled space for weapons testing and classified maneuvers. It also serves as a proving ground for any new technology. PLA researchers and weapons developers test unmanned ground vehicles here, autonomous reconnaissance drones, electronic warfare, and even prototypes for hypersonic missiles. The presence of some newer systems like AI-assisted targeting and battlefield robotics does reflect the PLA's push towards modernizing its force structure and closing the capability gap with NATO-aligned powers. International observers have taken note of the activity within this command training zone. Satellite imagery has frequently shown the buildup of troops and equipment ahead of major exercises. Some drills have involved the mobilization of more than 10,000 troops, including entire armored divisions supported by attack helicopters, engineering brigades, and electronic warfare units. These operations are often timed to coincide with geopolitical flashpoints or serve as strategic messaging to neighboring states. The Chinese government has emphasized transparency in some areas while maintaining strict control over the media and public access to the region. Official state media occasionally broadcasts footage of exercises and highlights of combat-ready units. However, the overall operations here remain classified and access is tightly restricted. Looking ahead, the Chinese military is expected to continue expanding its use of this Northern Theater training zone. Future developments include additional digital training platforms like simulation centers and the further integration of joint training between different branches of their militaries. There's also reports of plans to expand cyber and space warfare training elements, including mock operations to protect or disable satellites, and the Northern Theater Training Zone stands as a cornerstone of China's modern military capability. As China continues to modernize and assert its military presence on the global stage, this zone is going to remain central to its defense doctrine. Number 3. The Shawwater Bay Military Training Area in Queensland, Australia. Shawwater Bay. It's located in central Queensland, Australia. It's one of the largest and most important defense training zones in the Southern Hemisphere. It covers approximately 4,500 square kilometers, that's about 1,700 square miles. And the training area supports a wide array of military exercises. Established in 1965, Shawwater Bay was designed to provide the Australian Defence Force with a permanent training environment that could accommodate large-scale maneuver warfare exercise. Over time, its role has expanded dramatically. The terrain here is diverse. It ranges from open savanna and bushland to wetland, beaches, and mountainous areas. It supports operations involving armored vehicle, infantry, artillery, helicopters, naval vessels, and even amphibious assaults. Its proximity to the Coral Sea makes it really valuable for joint air-sea-land exercises, including the integration with the Royal Australian Navy ships and maritime patrol aircraft. The training area is a central hub for Exercise Talisman Sabre, a biennial military exercise conducted jointly by the Australian and U.S. Armed Forces. First held in 2005, Talisman Sabre has grown into one of the largest bilateral training exercises in the world, often involving more than 30,000 troops from both countries. During these operations, Shawwater Bay becomes a temporary home to thousands of soldiers, dozens of aircraft, and huge formations of naval vessels that operate offshore. Other allied countries, including Japan, Canada, the UK, and New Zealand, have all participated as well. The Australian Department of Defence has heavily invested in the infrastructure at the site to support long-term operations, and these upgrades have included new training facilities, logistics hubs, ammunition storage zones, and improved roads. The area does also include facilities for urban warfare training, close quarters battle environments, and tactical landing zones for helicopters and fixed-wing craft. In recent years, Shawwater Bay has also become part of the Australia-Singapore Military Training Initiative, a long-term agreement that allows the Singapore Armed Forces to conduct extended training in Australia. Under this initiative, Singapore has committed over $2 billion Australian dollars towards the development of training infrastructure in Shawwater Bay. This collaboration enhances defense ties between the two nations and provides Singapore, whose territory limits its domestic training options, with access to a huge and realistic battlefield. Despite the commitment to sustainability here, Shawwater Bay has occasionally faced some criticism from environmental groups, particularly during major exercises. Concerns have included potential damage to marine ecosystems from amphibious landings and the disturbance of native plants and animals by high-volume troop movements. Nevertheless, the site remains in active use, and the Australian government has reaffirmed its intention to maintain Shawwater Bay as a primary training location. Security and access, of course, are tightly controlled. Entries are restricted to authorized military personnel and approved contractors. The exercises here often draw observers from various defense departments and international organizations who then monitor the operations to evaluate readiness. The logistical footprint required to support this kind of training is pretty significant. Temporary camps and mobile command units are established within the zone, complete with water purification, field hospitals, power gen facilities, and satellite communications arrays. Large-scale exercises involve weeks of preparation and staging, followed by days or weeks of operations that simulate combat conditions in real time. Australia views this site as essential to its strategic posture, allowing rapid response to regional crises and enhancing deterrence through preparedness. The base plays a role in alliance building and security assurance, especially under frameworks such as the AUKUS agreement and long-standing treaties with the U.S. Looking forward, though, Shawwater Bay is set to receive further investment. Technological upgrades are planned, including simulation centers for integrated training and expanded cyber defense capability. The combination of size, geography, and investment here makes it one of the most versatile military training areas in the world. It provides a critical testing ground for modern military tactics, while also serving as a physical manifestation of international defense cooperation in an increasingly contested global environment. Number 2. Aluded Air Base in Qatar. Aluded Air Base, located southwest of Doha and Qatar's desert interior, is one of the largest U.S. military installations in the Middle East, and it's one of the most strategically vital American air bases anywhere in the world. It sprawls across roughly 25 square kilometers, or about 9.5 square miles. The base is home to more than 10,000 personnel from the U.S. Air Force, Navy, Army, Marine Corps, and allied coalition forces. Despite its physical isolation in the arid landscape, the base functions as a nerve center for military operations that span from North Africa to South Asia. The base was constructed by Qatar in the 1990s as originally part of the National Defense Strategy to modernize its military infrastructure and encourage closer cooperation with Western allies. Qatar spent more than $1 billion on the base's initial construction, designing it to host large-scale air operations, and soon after, it began supporting U.S. forces on a rotating basis. The U.S. officially began operating from Aluded during the early 2000s, coinciding with the Afghanistan and Iraq wars. The base quickly evolved from a remote outpost into the principal hub for U.S. Central Command, or CENTCOM, air operations. One of the defining features of Aluded is its 13,000-foot runway, one of the longest in the region, and this allows it to accommodate virtually every aircraft in the U.S. and Allied inventories, including heavily loaded B-52 Stratofortress bombers, massive C-5M Super Galaxy transport planes, and mid-air refueling aircraft like the KC-135 Stratotanker and the KC-10 Extender. The base also regularly sees the rotation of fighter squadrons equipped with the F-15E Strike Eagles, F-16 Fighting Falcons, and F-22 Raptors. But perhaps the base is best known as the site of Combined Air Operations Center, a command facility housed in a fortified building on the premises. Now, the CAOC is responsible for the coordination of all U.S. and Allied air operations across the CENTCOM area of responsibility, which includes 20 countries and more than 4 million square miles of airspace. From inside, commanders oversee real-time battlefield conditions, enabling them to redirect access or support missions within minutes. The logistical infrastructure here at Aluded is also immense. The base maintains a network of hardened aircraft shelters, command bunkers, and pre-positioned weapons storage facilities. It's supported by a separate operations area for munitions assembly and storage, which makes it a fully integrated launch platform for long-duration missions. In terms of living and operational facilities, Aluded has developed into a near-permanent installation. What began as a tented encampment now includes barracks, dining halls, chapels, medical clinics, recreational areas, and even fast food outlets. While many U.S. military bases around the world are built for flexibility and rotation, Aluded's design and development suggests semi-permanent strategic intent. During Operation Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan and Operation Iraqi Freedom, Aluded served as a launch and coordination platform for thousands of sorties. Surveillance and strike aircraft from the base supported missions deep into hostile territory, while tankers provided aerial refueling over the Arabian Sea and surrounding regions. A critical role the base played came during the 2021 U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan. Aluded served as the central hub for evacuation efforts, hosting and processing tens of thousands of Afghan refugees and U.S. personnel. Diplomatically, Aluded symbolizes the close, though sometimes delicate, security relationship between the U.S. and Qatar. The base operates under a Status of Forces Agreement, or SOFA, and Qatari military police guard the outside perimeter, while U.S. forces control interior operations. Qatar has repeatedly invested in the base's infrastructure, funding expansion projects that enhance both the U.S. and Qatari capability. In 2018, they announced a $1.8 billion plan to upgrade the base, which included new living quarters, headquarter facilities, and hardened command structures. But despite its significance, Aluded has not been without its controversy. Human rights groups and independent watchdogs have all raised concerns over labor conditions related to the base's expansion projects. Moreover, the presence of a large American military force in Qatar has occasionally stirred some political tension in the region, especially during diplomatic rifts between Qatar and its Gulf neighbors. Strategically, though, it is ideally located. Its central position in the Persian Gulf region places it within rapid striking range of critical zones, including the Strait of Hormuz, the Arabian Peninsula, and the Red Sea Corridor in East Africa. Security, of course, remains a high priority here. The U.S. Department of Defense has implemented cybersecurity controls, surveillance countermeasures, and personnel vetting procedures to ensure the base integrity, especially given the strategic importance and command systems here. Aluded continues to evolve. Current expansion projects include hardened command bunkers, improved housing for long-term deployments, and enhanced facilities for coalition partners. With decades of investment and cooperation between the U.S. and Qatar, Aluded has transformed a remote desert runway into one of the most advanced and indispensable military installations outside of the United States. Whether supporting airstrikes, humanitarian airlifts, or global surveillance, its contributions to modern warfare and defense strategy are unmatched in the region. Number 1. The Rammstein Air Base in Germany. Rammstein Air Base, located in southwestern Germany, is the largest U.S. military installation in Europe and one of the most important overseas bases in the American defense architecture. It covers roughly 14 square kilometers, or about 5.5 square miles, and it serves as the headquarters for the U.S. Air Forces in Europe, Air Forces Africa, and as a hub for global airlift and operations for U.S. European Command and NATO. Established after World War II and fully operational by the mid-1950s, Rammstein has evolved into a fully integrated command and logistics center. It plays a key role in both routine deployments and emergency missions across Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. One of Rammstein's defining characteristics is its role as a strategic airlift hub. It features a large airfield with a 10,500-foot runway, ample apron space, and the infrastructure to support a constant rotation of large aircraft, including the C-130J Hercules, the C-17 Globemaster III, and the KC-135 Stratotankers. It handles tens of thousands of takeoffs and landings annually, often transporting personnel, equipment, and humanitarian aid. Rammstein is also home to the 86th Airlift Wing, which operates tactical airlift missions across Europe and Africa, and the 521st Air Mobility Operations Wing, which manages air mobility command operations from U.S. to Eurasia. Rammstein also plays a vital role in drone warfare operations. The base has been linked to the routing and relay of satellite communications for U.S. drone missions in Africa and the Middle East, although official details are classified. It serves as a forward operating base for surveillance and command infrastructure that's critical to these missions. The base hosts around 9,000 active duty personnel, along with thousands of civilian employees and family members, which includes additional U.S. Army and Air Force facilities too. In total, this is the largest concentration of Americans outside the U.S., with more than 50,000 personnel and dependents living and working in the area. Rammstein has been central to several major global events. It was instrumental in operations during the Gulf War, the Kosovo conflict, and NATO's response to the 2014 Ukraine crisis. In 2021, the base became a critical transit point during the evacuation of U.S. personnel and Afghan allies, hosting thousands of evacuees in temporary shelters. It's strategically located in the heart of Europe. With the infrastructure to support large-scale air operations, command networks, and logistics, Rammstein Air Base is essential for maintaining American and NATO readiness across Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. It remains a cornerstone of the U.S. global military footprint.